My name is Savannah. I am 28 years old and I live in Savannah, Georgia. I paid for the white hydrangeas. I paid for the expensive catering. I even paid for the rental of the venue for my mother's birthday gala. But I wasn't there. I was sitting alone in my studio apartment, eating a cold sandwich, watching my phone. My Aunt Karen had started a Facebook Live video by accident. She probably thought the phone was off, but it was recording everything. I saw my mother holding a glass of champagne I bought. She looked happy. She looked relieved. "Thank God Savannah isn't here," my mother said, her voice loud and clear through my tiny phone speakers. She would just ruin the aesthetic with her moodiness. My chest went tight. I waited for someone to defend me. I waited for my father to speak up. Instead, my sister, Jessica, laughed. She flipped her hair. "She is useful for writing checks," Jessica said. "But God, she is such a social embarrassment." The room filled with laughter. My family was laughing at me. I looked around my quiet, empty apartment. I realized the truth in that moment. I wasn't their daughter. I wasn't a sister. I was just a bank account. I turned off the phone. I didn't cry. I was done being harvested. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My name is Savannah. I am 28 years old. People see flowers and they think of beauty. They think of sweet smells and soft petals. They think of romance. When I tell people I am a floral architect, they smile. They say, "Oh, how lovely, you get to play with flowers all day." They don't see the reality. They don't see the hands. I looked at my hands as I sat in my studio apartment. They were rough. The skin was dry and cracked. My knuckles were swollen. I had a burn mark on my left forearm from a hot glue gun 3 weeks ago. I had scratches on my palms from chicken wire. I wasn't just arranging daisies in a vase. I was building massive structures. I built walls of roses. I created hanging gardens for wedding receptions that weighed hundreds of pounds. I woke up at 3 in the morning to go to the flower market. I hauled heavy buckets of water. I climbed ladders. I hammered nails. It was hard, physical labor. It was exhausting, but I was good at it. In Savannah, Georgia, I had made a name for myself. My company, Savannah Blooms, was the secret engine behind the biggest events in the city. But my family didn't see me as an artist. They didn't see me as a business owner. To them, I was just the help. I remembered a specific event from 2 months ago. It was a launch party for a new boutique hotel. My sister Jessica had been hired as the brand ambassador. That meant she just had to show up, look pretty, and take photos for her social media. I was hired to do the decor. I arrived at the hotel at 5 a.m. The ballroom was empty and cold. I had a team of 3 assistants, but I did the hardest work myself. We were building a floral archway that needed to look like it was growing out of the floor. It took 6 hours. My back ached. My fingers were bleeding from stripping the thorns off hundreds of red roses. I was sweating. My hair was tied back in a messy bun, and I was wearing my old work overalls covered in green sap stains. At noon, Jessica arrived. She looked perfect. She was wearing a white silk dress. Her hair was blown out in loose waves. She smelled like expensive perfume I knew I had paid for. She walked into the ballroom and looked at the archway I had just finished. I was on my knees, sweeping up the cut stems and leaves. "Is it done?" she asked. She didn't say hello. She didn't ask how I was. "Yes," I said, standing up and wiping my hands on my apron. "It's finished. Be careful, the structure is heavy." "Move," she said, gesturing with her hand. "I need to get the light before the guests come." I stepped aside. I watched as she posed in front of my work. She smiled, that fake, bright smile she used for the camera. She took selfie after selfie. Then, she handed her phone to Mom, who had just walked in. "Mom, take a picture of me with the flowers," Jessica said. "Make sure you get the whole arch." Mom took the photo. "Gorgeous, honey, you look like a queen." I stood in the corner, holding a broom. I felt invisible. Later that night, I was scrolling through Instagram. I saw Jessica's post. It was the photo of her in front of my red rose arch. The caption read, "Spent all day creating this vision. So proud of the design I put together for the hotel launch. Creativity is my passion. Number girl boss, number floral design, number Miller magic." She claimed my work. She said she designed it. She said she created it. I looked at the likes. Thousands of people were liking it. The comments were full of praise. "You're so talented, Jessica. Is there anything you can't do? Incredible eye for design." I felt a lump in my throat. I wanted to comment. I wanted to say, "I did that. My hands are bleeding because of that." But I didn't. I remembered what Dad had said the last time I complained. Don't be jealous, Savannah. Jessica is the face of the family. You're the backbone. Both are important. Backbone, that's what they called me. A backbone is necessary. It holds everything up. But nobody ever looks at a backbone. Nobody admires it. It stays hidden under the skin, doing all the heavy lifting, while the face gets all the attention. I was the floral architect. I understood structure. I knew that if you put too much weight on a structure without reinforcing it, eventually, it snaps. I looked at the live stream on my phone again. The party was still going on without me. Jessica was laughing. My family used my work as a backdrop for their lives. They stood in front of the beauty I created and took the credit. They treated me like a vendor they didn't have to pay. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was a service provider. And I was tired of providing. Most people thought the Millers were rich. If you drove past my parents' house, you would think so too. It was a large, colonial-style estate with big white pillars and a sprawling lawn. We called it the Miller Estate. It looked impressive. It looked like old money, but it was a lie. The house was a shell. Inside, the walls were cracking. The furniture was old. And the bank account attached to it had been empty since 2018. That was the year Dad made some bad investments. He lost almost everything. But my parents couldn't handle the idea of looking poor. Appearance was everything to them. They couldn't sell the house. They couldn't downsize. What would the neighbors think? What would the country club say? So they turned to me. I remember the day it started. I was 23. I had just started my business. I didn't have much money myself, but I was saving every penny I made. Mom called me crying. Savannah, they're going to cut off the electricity, she sobbed. Your father is just waiting on a check to clear, but it won't be here until next week. Please, honey, it's just for a few days. We don't want to sit in the dark. I felt a rush of panic. I didn't want my parents to be in the dark. I transferred $400 to them immediately. Thank you, Angel, Mom said. We'll pay you back next week. Next week came. They didn't pay me back. I didn't ask. I thought, it's fine, it's just $400. I'm helping family. But then it happened again the next month. This time it was the water bill. Then it was the property tax. Then it was the insurance. Just until Dad gets back on his feet, they said. Just until Jessica's career takes off, they said. It had been 5 years. Dad never got back on his feet. Jessica's career was a black hole that sucked in money but never produced any. And I was the one filling the hole. I had a schedule. On the first of every month, I sat down at my small desk in my studio apartment. My apartment was tiny. It was one room with a kitchenette. My furniture was from IKEA. I didn't have a dishwasher. I didn't have a view. I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. Then, I logged into my parents' joint account. I had their passwords. They gave them to me so I could manage things for them. I transferred $3,500 every single month. $3,500. That money covered their mortgage interest. It covered their electricity, which was always high because they refused to turn down the air conditioning. It covered the pool cleaner. It covered the landscaper who cut the grass at the estate. I paid for a pool I never swam in. I paid for a lawn I wasn't allowed to walk on because Mom didn't want me tracking dirt inside. After the transfer, I would pay their credit card minimums. I watched their spending. I saw the charges. $200 at a steakhouse. $150 at the hair salon Jessica. $80 at the liquor store. $300 for consulting fees, Dad. They were living a life of luxury. They were eating steak and drinking expensive wine. Meanwhile, I was eating peanut butter toast for dinner. I told myself it was loyalty. I told myself this is what families do. They support each other. But deep down, I knew it wasn't support. It was a trap. I was buying their love. Every month when I hit that transfer button, I felt a tiny bit of hope. Maybe this time they would say thank you. Maybe this time they would invite me over for dinner and actually talk to me. Maybe this time they would be proud. They never were. The money became expected. It was like gravity, it was just there. If I was ever late, even by a few hours, my phone would ring. Savannah, the electric bill is due today, Dad would say, his voice stern. Did you forget? We can't have a lapse. He never asked if I had the money. He never asked if I could afford it. He just demanded it. I lived in constant anxiety. I worked 7 days a week to keep up with their bills and my own. I drove a 10-year-old van for my deliveries. My clothes were simple and worn. I never took vacations. I convinced myself that I was the strong one. I was the responsible one. I was saving the Miller name, but sitting there watching the live stream, hearing them call me a freeloader and a social embarrassment, the illusion shattered. I wasn't saving them, I was enabling them. I was paying $3,500 a month for a subscription to a family that didn't even like me. I looked around my small apartment. It was clean. It was quiet. It was mine. I paid for this roof over my head. And I paid for the roof over their heads too. The anger started in my stomach. It wasn't a hot, fiery anger. It was cold. It was heavy. I thought about the taxes I paid on their house. I thought about the new filter I bought for their pool last summer. I thought about the catered food they were eating right now at the gala. I paid for that. They were laughing at me while eating food I bought, in a room I decorated, in spirit, if not in person, wearing clothes I effectively purchased. I was the foundation of the Miller estate, and they were treating me like dirt. The money issues didn't start with the house bills. The rot went deeper than that. It went back to when I was 18 years old. That was the moment I should have known. That was the moment the trust was broken. But I was too young and too desperate for love to see it clearly. My grandmother, my mother's mother, was the only person in the family who really saw me. She used to sit with me in the garden and teach me the names of the flowers. She told me I had a gentle soul. When she passed away, she left me a specific inheritance. She knew my parents were bad with money. She knew Jessica was the favorite. So she left $60,000 specifically in my name, intended for my college tuition. She wanted me to go to design school. She wanted me to be free. I remember the day I got accepted into the University of Georgia. I was so excited. I had my acceptance letter in one hand and my grandmother's will in the other. I walked into the kitchen where my parents were sitting. I got in, I beamed. And with Grandma's money, I can pay for all 4 years without any loans. My mother didn't smile. My father cleared his throat and looked down at the table. "Savannah, sit down," Dad said. My stomach dropped. "What is it?" "We need to talk about the money," Mom said. She reached out and touched my hand, but her touch felt cold. "What about it?" I asked. "It's in the trust account." "Well," Dad started, "technically, as your guardians, we had access to manage that account until you turned 18. And," I whispered, "we had to make an executive decision for the family," Mom said. She tried to make her voice sound reasonable, like she was explaining something simple to a child. Jessica had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. An agency in Miami wanted to represent her, but she needed a portfolio and coaching and travel expenses. It is very expensive to launch a modeling career. I stared at them. "You spent my college money." "We didn't spend it," Dad said defensively. "We invested it. Jessica is going to be big, Savannah. When she makes it, she'll pay you back 10 times over. It's an investment for all of us." "But that was for my school," I said, my voice shaking. "Grandma left it for me." "Don't be selfish," Mom snapped. Her nice mask slipped for a second. "Your sister has a chance to be famous. You can just take out loans or go to community college. You're smart, you'll figure it out. Jessica needs the help more than you do." They had drained the account. All $60,000. Gone. They sent Jessica to Miami. They paid for photographers. They paid for a luxury apartment for her for 6 months. They bought her a wardrobe. I went to college, but it wasn't the experience my grandmother wanted for me. I remembered my freshman year. It was winter. My dorm room was in one of the old, unrenovated buildings. The window didn't close all the way, and a freezing draft came in every night. I couldn't afford the meal plan because I had to use my loan money for tuition and books. I had a box of instant noodles under my bed. That was my dinner almost every night. I would sit on my thin mattress, wrapped in a cheap blanket, smelling the beef flavoring of the soup, trying to study for my exams. I was working 2 jobs, one at the library and one at a coffee shop, just to pay for rent and gas. I was exhausted all the time. One night I was eating my noodles, shivering in the cold room. I opened Facebook on my laptop. There was a picture of Jessica. She was in Tulum, Mexico. My parents had sent her there for a wellness retreat to help her center herself before her next big break. In the photo, she was on a white sandy beach. The water was turquoise. She was holding a coconut drink. She looked tan and happy and warm. The caption read, "Living my best life. So grateful for my supportive family who believes in my dreams. Number blessed, number model life." I looked at the noodles. I looked at the cold, gray window of my dorm room. I cried that night. I cried until my eyes were swollen shut. It wasn't just the money. It was the message. The message was clear. Jessica's comfort was worth more than my education. Jessica's fake career was worth more than my future. I was the sacrifice. But I didn't stop talking to them. I didn't cut them off. I was 18. I was scared. I thought if I worked hard enough, if I didn't complain, eventually they would see what they did to me. I thought they would feel guilty. But they never felt guilty. They just felt entitled. That was the first betrayal. The first seed of rot. It grew inside me for years. It taught me that my needs didn't matter. It taught me that I existed to serve them. And now, years later, watching that live stream, I realized nothing had changed. They stole my tuition then, and they were stealing my salary now. Jessica was still in the sun, drinking champagne. I was still in the cold, paying the bill. After the tuition theft, you would think I would have learned. You would think I would have run away. But abuse is complicated. Financial abuse is even more complicated. It's slow. It creeps up on you. After college, I started my business. I worked hard, I started making money, and as soon as I did, my parents were there. It started small. Can you pick up the check for dinner? Can you buy groceries this week? Then, the Miller estate started crumbling. I became the secret keeper. I was the one who knew how close they were to losing everything. There was a day 3 years ago that I will never forget. I was at a flower market buying peonies. My phone rang. It was Dad. "They're here," he whispered. He sounded terrified. "Who?" I asked, dropping a bundle of flowers. "The sheriff. They have a foreclosure notice. They're going to auction the house, Savannah. You have to do something." I drove to the house. The notice was taped to the front door. It was bright orange. It was humiliating. I went inside. Mom was crying on the sofa. Jessica was in her room, listening to music with headphones on, completely oblivious. "Fix it," Dad said to me. He was pacing the floor. "You have savings, fix it." "Dad, that's my business money," I said. "That's for my taxes, that's for my inventory." "Do you want us on the street?" Mom wailed. "Do you want the neighbors to see us getting kicked out?" I paid it. I drained my business account to pay the arrears on their mortgage, $12,000. I saved the house. And do you know what happened the next day? Mom hosted a garden party. She wore a new dress. She served expensive wine. She laughed with her friends. She acted like she was the queen of the manor. She didn't mention the foreclosure. She didn't mention the $12,000. She didn't mention me. I stood in the kitchen, washing the wine glasses, and I felt like a ghost. This pattern continued for years. I was the dam holding back the floodwaters. Every time a leak sprung, I plugged it with my money. And Jessica. Her career was entirely financed by me, though she didn't know it, or maybe she chose not to know. She called herself an influencer. She had 50,000 followers on Instagram. She posted photos of her outfits, her makeup, her trips. But who paid for the clothes? I did. Who paid for the iPhone she took the pictures with? I did. Who paid for the data plan she used to upload them? I did. I rationalized it. I told myself, I'm helping the family. If Jessica succeeds, we all succeed. If Mom and Dad are happy, then I'm a good daughter. I was desperate to be a good daughter. I thought if I paid enough, I could buy my way into their hearts. I thought if I solved enough problems, they would finally look at me with the same adoration they looked at Jessica. But watching that live stream in my dark apartment, the rationalization died. I heard my mother's voice again from the phone. "Thank God Savannah isn't here to ruin the aesthetic." I looked at the timestamp on the video. It was live. They were saying this right now. I thought about the $3,500 that was scheduled to leave my account tomorrow morning. The first of the month was tomorrow. I thought about the foreclosure notice I paid. I thought about the tuition they stole. I thought about the cold noodles. I thought about my bleeding hands. I wasn't helping. I was being exploited. There is a difference between a lifeline and a leash. I thought I was throwing them a lifeline, but they had put a leash around my neck and were draining me dry. They didn't love me. They loved my utility. They loved that I was quiet. They loved that I fixed things. They loved that I wrote checks. But they didn't love me. If I stopped paying, they wouldn't ask if I was okay. They would just be angry that the money stopped. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I felt sick. But then the sickness faded and something else took its place, clarity. I looked at the phone screen one last time. Jessica was dancing now. Mom was clapping. They looked so carefree. Of course they were carefree. They had a sponsor. They had me. I set the phone down on the table. "No more," I said out loud to the empty room. My voice was steady. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to beg for crumbs of affection. I stood up and walked to my laptop. I sat down. The screen glowed blue in the dark room. It was time to prune the dead branches. I opened my banking portal. It was time to let the Miller estate stand on its own foundation. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that without me, it would crumble into dust. I poised my finger over the mouse. It was time for the cold revenge. The laptop screen was the only source of light in my small studio apartment. It cast a blue, clinical glow over my hands, which were resting on the edge of the cheap laminate table. The clock in the top right corner of the screen read 11:42 p.m. I had 18 minutes. 18 minutes until midnight. 18 minutes until the first of the month. 18 minutes until the automated banking system triggered the wire transfer that I had set up 5 years ago. $3,500. I stared at the number on the screen. It was just pixels, black text on a white background, but it felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. That number wasn't just currency. It was my sweat. It was the ache in my lower back after standing on concrete floors for 12 hours. It was the burn of rose thorns slicing through my thumb. It was the smell of bleach and old flower water. For 60 months, I had sent that money. That was $210,000. I closed my eyes for a moment. The silence in my apartment was absolute. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchenette. I could hear a car driving by on the wet pavement outside. Usually, this silence made me feel lonely. It made me feel like I was missing out on the party, on the warmth of the Miller estate. But tonight, after watching that livestream, the silence felt different. It didn't feel empty. It felt clean. I opened my eyes and looked at the banking portal. My finger hovered over the trackpad. I remembered the day I set this transfer up. I was 23. I sat in this exact chair. My mother had been crying on the phone earlier that day, telling me they couldn't afford to heat the pool for Jessica's homecoming party. I had felt so important then. I felt like the savior. I thought, I can fix this. I can be the good daughter. I was so stupid. I wasn't a savior. I was a battery. They plugged into me, drained me, and then complained that I wasn't charging them fast enough. I navigated to the Recurring Transfers tab. The cursor moved slowly. My hand wasn't shaking. That surprised me. I expected to be trembling with fear or guilt. I expected to hear my father's voice in my head, shouting about duty and loyalty. But I didn't hear him. I only heard the echo of my mother's voice from the video. Thank God Savannah isn't here to ruin the aesthetic. The aesthetic. That's all we were to them. A picture, a look, a vibe. I clicked edit. The screen refreshed. The details of the transfer appeared. Recipient, Robert and Linda Miller, joint checking. Amount, $3,500. Frequency, monthly. Next date, tomorrow. I moved the mouse to the red button that said Cancel Transfer. A dialog box popped up, asking for confirmation. Are you sure you want to cancel this recurring payment? This action cannot be undone. I whispered to the empty room, I am sure. I clicked yes. The screen flashed. A green banner appeared at the top. Success. Recurring payment canceled. It was done. The money that was supposed to leave my account in 15 minutes would stay right here. It would stay in my pocket. It would stay where it belonged. But as I sat there, watching the clock tick to 11:45 p.m., I realized that canceling the cash wasn't enough. If I just stopped the transfer, they would find another way. They were resourceful parasites. They would switch to the credit cards. The credit cards were in my name. When I was 24, my credit score was excellent. My parents' score was in the trash because of the foreclosure scares and the missed payments. They couldn't get a card with a limit higher than $500. So, they asked me to open an American Express Platinum account. They said it was for emergencies. They said they would pay me back every month. I added them as authorized users. I gave a card to Dad. I gave a card to Mom. And because Mom begged me, saying Jessica needed it for gas and safety, I gave a card to Jessica. They never paid me back. I paid the bill, every month. I opened a new tab on my browser. I typed in the credit card website address. I logged in. The balance stared back at me. Current balance. $4,585.20. Statement close date. 3 days ago. I clicked on transaction history to see what emergencies had happened this month. Oct 28, the Ritz-Carlton catering, $4,200, pending. That was the gala. The party I wasn't invited to. I paid for the food they were eating while they mocked me. Oct 29, Uber Black, $85, that was Jessica. She took a luxury car to get her nails done. Oct 30, Sephora, $145.50, Jessica again. Makeup. Oct 30 total wine and spirits, $154.70 dad. Expensive scotch. My stomach didn't turn. It hardened. I felt like I was turning into stone piece by piece. I went to the account services menu. I found the section for Manage Authorized Users. I saw their names listed there. Robert Miller, Linda Miller, Jessica Miller. I started with Jessica. I clicked Freeze Card. The system asked for a reason. I didn't select Lost or Stolen. I selected Other. Then I realized freezing it wasn't enough. A freeze can be unfrozen. If Dad called me screaming, I might be weak. I might unfreeze it just to make the screaming stop. I needed to burn the bridge. I needed to make sure there was no way back. I clicked Remove User. Warning: this will permanently deactivate the card ending in 4098. The user will no longer be able to make purchases. I clicked Confirm. Jessica was gone. I did the same for Mom. Remove User. Confirm. Mom was gone, then Dad. Remove User. Confirm. Dad was gone. The only name left on the account was mine, Savannah Miller. I sat back in my chair. It was 11:50 p.m. 10 minutes left. I felt a surge of adrenaline. It wasn't fear anymore, it was momentum. I was like a tornado touching down. I had destroyed the financial bridge, but they were still connected to me in other ways. I picked up my phone. I went to the Verizon app. I was the account manager for the Miller family plan. We had 4 lines, unlimited everything, high-speed data, hotspot capability, international texting. It cost me $400 a month. I went to the plan management section. I saw Jessica's data usage for the month, 45 gigabytes. She was constantly streaming, uploading videos, watching TikToks. She lived on her phone. Her phone was her lifeline to her fake world. I clicked on her line. I selected Change Plan. I scrolled past the unlimited premium options. I scrolled past the standard options. I went all the way to the bottom. Basic talk and text. No data. It was the plan meant for emergency phones or flip phones for grandparents. It allowed phone calls. It allowed simple text messages, but no internet, no Instagram, no Facebook Live, no uploading stories. I selected it for Jessica. I selected it for Mom. I selected it for Dad. I kept my own plan on unlimited. I hit Save Changes. Your plan changes will take effect immediately. Please restart the devices to ensure service update. They wouldn't know until they tried to load a web page. They wouldn't know until the stream cut out. I checked the time. 11:55 p.m. 5 minutes. I wasn't done. I wanted to scrub every trace of my support from their lives. I opened the streaming services. Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, Spotify Family Premium, Disney Plus. I paid for all of them. I had the passwords. They all used my login. I went to Netflix first. Settings, sign out of all devices. Change password. I typed in a new password, something complicated, something personal. Password, not your bank 2024. I did the same for Hulu, sign out of all devices. Change password, HBO, Spotify, Disney. One by one, I kicked them out. I imagined the TVs in the Miller estate going black. I imagined Dad trying to watch his golf tournament and getting the login screen. I imagined Jessica trying to listen to her workout playlist and getting hit with an ad. It was petty. I knew it was petty. But after 5 years of being treated like a servant, petty felt like justice. Finally, I went to the Uber account. The rideshare app was linked to my credit card, but it was a shared family profile. I could see the ride history. They used it constantly. Dad used it when he drank too much at the club. Jessica used it to go everywhere because she didn't like driving her own car, a car I helped pay for the down payment on. I went to family settings. I removed my credit card from the payment options. I deleted the family profile entirely. Now, if they wanted a ride, they would have to enter their own card. A card that I knew would decline because they had no money. It was 11:59 p.m. I had done it. In less than 20 minutes, I had dismantled the entire infrastructure of their lives. I had cut the power cords. I stared at the clock. The seconds ticked by, 58, 59:0, 12 a.m. The date changed on my computer screen. It was officially a new month. Somewhere in the banking cloud, the command to transfer $3,500 checked the system, saw the cancellation, and dissolved. The money stayed in my account. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. It was a long, shaky exhale. My heart was beating slow and hard against my ribs. Thump, thump, thump. I looked around my apartment. It was the same room it had been 20 minutes ago. The same cheap IKEA furniture, the same peeling paint in the corner, but it felt different. It felt fortified. It felt like a castle. "The show is over," I whispered. I closed the laptop. The blue light vanished, plunging the room into darkness. I stood up and walked to the window. I looked out at the streetlights reflecting on the wet road. I wondered what was happening at the gala. Were they leaving? Was Jessica trying to call an Uber right now, staring at her phone in confusion because the payment method was gone? Was Mom trying to upload one last photo and seeing the no data connection error? I didn't smile. This wasn't funny. It was tragic. It was tragic that it had to come to this. It was tragic that the only way to get my freedom was to destroy them. But as I turned away from the window and walked toward my bed, I realized something else. I hadn't destroyed them, I had just stopped holding them up. If they fell, it was because they had never bothered to build their own legs. I climbed into bed. The sheets were cool. I pulled the duvet up to my chin. Usually, on the night before the first of the month, I couldn't sleep. I would lay awake worrying. Did I leave enough in my account for my own rent? Did I pay the electric bill on time? Will Dad call me tomorrow asking for more? Tonight, my mind was quiet. The anxiety was gone. It had been replaced by a cold, heavy resolve. I closed my eyes. I fell asleep almost instantly. I woke up to the sound of birds chirping outside my window. It was a soft, gentle sound. The morning light was filtering through the blinds, casting stripes of gold across my duvet. For a split second, I forgot. For a split second, I just felt rested. I stretched my arms over my head, feeling the stiffness leave my shoulders. It was the best sleep I had had in years. No teeth grinding, no nightmares about bouncing checks. Then, I looked at my nightstand. My phone was there. The screen was black, but the little notification light at the top was blinking furiously. It was a rapid, green pulse. Blink, 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 blink. Memory flooded back. The live stream, the betrayal, the midnight purge. I sat up and reached for the phone. My hand felt heavy. I knew what was waiting for me inside that device. I knew it wasn't going to be pretty. I pressed the side button. The screen lit up. The list of notifications was so long it ran off the screen. 47 missed calls. 86 new text messages. 12 voicemails. The time was 6:30 a.m. They had been trying to reach me all night. I didn't unlock it yet. I got out of bed. I needed armor. I went to the shower. I turned the water to hot as I could stand. I stood under the spray, scrubbing my skin. I washed my hair. I wanted to wash away the feeling of being their daughter. I wanted to wash away the Miller stain. I dried off and put on my work clothes. My favorite jeans, the ones with the reinforced knees, a gray t-shirt, my heavy work boots. I tied my hair back in a tight, practical ponytail. I went to the kitchen and made coffee. I listened to the drip, drip, drip of the machine. I poured a mug black. I took a sip. It was bitter and hot. It grounded me. Finally, I sat down at the small table and unlocked my phone. The phone practically vibrated in my hand as it tried to load all the missed messages. I opened the text thread first. Mom, 12:45 a.m. Savannah, the Uber app isn't working. It says valid payment method required. I'm trying to get us home from the gala. Pick up. Mom, 12:52 a.m. Savannah, are you asleep? This is ridiculous. Dad is getting angry. Put the card back on the account. Jessica, 1:05 a.m. OMFG Savannah. I can't upload my story. My phone says data limit reached. I have unlimited. Fix it. Now. Dad, 1:15 a.m. Call me immediately. Dad, 1:30 a.m. We had to take a taxi, a yellow cab like peasants. The driver demanded cash. We don't carry cash. I had to go to an ATM and pay a $5 fee. You are in serious trouble, young lady. I scrolled down. The times got later. The tone got darker. Mom, 2 a.m. We're home. The Wi-Fi is working, but the Netflix is logged out. Did you change the password? Dad wants to watch his show to calm down. Dad, 6 a.m. I just checked the bank. The transfer didn't hit. The account is at zero. Explain yourself. Dad, 6:15 a.m. I tried to buy gas on the way to the golf course. The Amex was declined. The attendant cut the card in half. In half, do you know how humiliating that is? Mom, 6:20 a.m. Savannah, please. Dad is throwing things. Just tell us it was a mistake. Just transfer the money and we can talk. I read the messages with a strange detachment. It was like I was reading a script for a drama I wasn't starring in anymore. They were so panicked. They were so helpless. A yellow cab, a declined card, a logged-out Netflix account. These were minor inconveniences to most people. To the Millers, it was the apocalypse. I didn't reply. I put the phone in my pocket and walked out the door. I drove to my floral studio. The drive was quiet. I didn't turn on the radio. I just focused on the road. When I got to the studio, the air smelled of eucalyptus and damp earth. It was my sanctuary. This was the place where I made things. This was the place where I had value, not because of my checkbook, but because of my skill. My assistant Sarah was already there. She was sweeping the floor. "Hey boss," she chirped. She looked happy. She didn't know my world was burning down. "The wholesale delivery just arrived. The hydrangeas look amazing." "Great," I said. My voice sounded steady. "Let's get them in water." I threw myself into the work. I stripped leaves off rose stems. Zip, zip, zip. The sound was rhythmic. I cut the stems at a 45-degree angle. Snip, snip. I focused on the physical sensation of the flowers, the velvet texture of the petals, the rough bark of the branches, but my phone kept buzzing in my pocket. BZZZT, BZZZT, BZZZT. It was relentless. At 10 a.m., I took a break. I went into the back office and closed the door. I took the phone out. There were new messages. The tone had shifted. They had moved past confusion and were now in the gaslighting phase. Mom, 9:30 a.m. Savannah, are you doing this because of the video? Karen told me she accidentally went live. Honey, you know we were just blowing off steam. We didn't mean it. Mom, 9:35 a.m. You're overreacting. Families tease each other. It's what we do. Don't be so sensitive. Jessica, 9:45 a.m. You are literally ruining my life right now. I have a brand deal post due at noon, and I can't post it because I have no data and the house Wi-Fi is acting up. You're just jealous because I'm successful and you play with dirt. Dad, 10 a.m. This is financial abuse, Savannah. You are abandoning your aging parents. After everything we did for you, we raised you, we fed you, and this is how you repay us. By starving us, I stared at the words financial abuse. The irony was so thick I could taste it. They were accusing me of financial abuse. After stealing my tuition, after draining my savings, after making me pay for their luxury life while I ate instant noodles. Rage flared up in my chest. It was hot and sharp. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive over there and shake them. I wanted to list every single dollar I had ever spent on them. But I knew that's what they wanted. They wanted a fight. They wanted me to engage. If I argued, I was still playing the game. If I yelled, I was still in the drama. Silence was the only weapon they didn't know how to fight. I decided to listen to one voicemail. Just one. I needed to hear the fear in their voices to know it was real. I clicked on the voicemail from Dad at 8:45 a.m. I put the phone to my ear. Savannah. His voice was low. It was the voice he used when I was a child and I had broken a vase. It was the voice that used to make me freeze in terror. I don't know what kind of game you think you're playing, but it ends now. You turn that money back on. You unfreeze those cards. Or so help me God, I will come down to that little flower shop of yours and I will cause a scene. You don't want that. You don't want your clients to know what an ungrateful daughter you are. Fix it. Click. He was threatening me. He was threatening my business. My hand shook slightly as I lowered the phone. Old habits die hard. The fear was there, a cold spike in my gut. He knew my weak spot. He knew I prided myself on my professional reputation. But then I looked around my office. I looked at the mood boards on the wall. I looked at the schedule of weddings I had booked. This was mine. I built this. He couldn't take it away from me. If he came here and caused a scene, he would just look like a crazy old man yelling at a florist. I wasn't a child anymore. I was the owner of the building. I held the lease. I held the cards. I decided to send one message, just one, to the group chat. I typed slowly, my fingers hitting the glass with precision. Me, I saw the video. I heard you call me a freeloader and a social embarrassment. I heard you laugh. Since I am such a burden to the Miller family, I have decided to remove myself and my wallet from the equation. You are free to finance your own aesthetic now. Do not come to my shop. Do not come to my home. We are done. I hit send. I watched the little delivered status appear. Then I did something I should have done years ago. I went to the settings of the group chat. Mute notifications. I went to my contacts. Dad, block caller. Mom, block caller. Jessica, block caller. I put the phone face down on the desk. The buzzing stopped. The silence returned to the room. But this time, it wasn't peaceful. It was heavy with anticipation. I knew this wasn't the end. They wouldn't just read that text and walk away. They were desperate, and desperate people are dangerous. I stood up and walked back out to the main floor of the shop. Sarah, I said. Sarah looked up from a bucket of roses. Yeah, boss. If anyone from my family comes in here today, I said, my voice hard, my parents or my sister, you tell them I'm busy. You tell them to leave. And if they don't leave, you call the police. Sarah's eyes went wide. She had met my parents once. She thought they were charming. She didn't know. The police, she whispered. Is everything okay? No, I said honestly. It's not. But it's going to be. I picked up a pair of shears. The metal was cold in my hand. Get back to work, I said. I went back to the flowers. I had a wedding to prepare for, a celebration of love. And while I built a monument to someone else's happiness, I prepared myself for the war that was coming to my doorstep. 3 days passed. The silence from my end was absolute. My parents were scrambling. I heard from a family friend that the electricity at the Miller estate had been shut off for 6 hours until Dad pawned his golf clubs to pay the bill. Then, I got a call from Aunt Karen. Karen was Mom's sister. She was the one who had accidentally live-streamed the video. But Karen wasn't like Mom. She was stern. She was a forensic accountant for a big firm in Atlanta. She dealt with fraud investigations. She had been at the party, but she hadn't been part of the conversation where they mocked me. Savannah, Karen said. Her voice was professional, clipped. Your parents called me. They are hysterical. They claimed you embezzled money from the family trust and locked them out of their accounts. That's a lie, I said calmly. There is no family trust. There hasn't been one for years. I've been paying their bills from my personal business earnings. That's what I suspected, Karen said. Bob, your father, asked me to audit the accounts. He thought he could prove you were stealing. He gave me access to everything to catch you. I waited. Savannah, Karen's tone softened slightly. I looked at the statements. I see the transfers from you. $3,500 a month, every month for 5 years. Plus the tuition money they took from you. I know, I said. But that's not all I found, Karen said. When I was looking at the credit card statements, the ones you paid off, I noticed a recurring charge on Jessica's authorized card. It was labeled Digital Horizon Solutions. What is that? I asked. It's a shell company, Karen explained. It's a click farm based overseas. I traced the transaction ID. $3,700 a month. My jaw dropped. Wait, $3,700, that's more than I gave them for the mortgage. Exactly, Karen said. Your parents weren't just using your money to live. They were using it to buy Jessica's career. That company sells fake followers, fake likes, and fake comments. I felt the room spin. Her followers, I asked. The 50,000 people, bots, Karen said. 90% of them. Her engagement rate is artificially inflated. Every time she posts, this company uses thousands of fake accounts to like and comment. That's why she never gets real brand deals, only small partnerships that don't pay well. The industry knows she's fake, but your parents have been propping up the illusion. I sat down heavily on my stool. My tuition, my hard work, my bleeding hands. It hadn't just gone to keeping a roof over their heads. It had gone to buying fake internet robots to clap for my sister. They starved me to feed a lie. She's a fraud, I whispered. A complete fraud, Karen confirmed. And an expensive one. Savannah, I'm sorry, I didn't know. If I had known what they were doing to you. It's okay, Karen, I said, my voice turned ice cold. Can you send me that documentation, the proof of the bot farm payments? I can, Karen said. What are you going to do with it? They're coming to my studio today, I said. Dad texted me, he's bringing Jessica, they want to confront me. I'll email you the PDF right now, Karen said. Good luck, honey, I hung up. I walked to the printer, I waited for the document to come through. Ping. I hit print, the pages slid out, warm and crisp, charts, graphs, transaction logs. It was undeniable proof that Jessica Miller, the influencer, was nothing more than a paid simulation. I took the papers. I took the bank statements showing my transfers. I put them in a black binder. I set the binder on the counter in the front of my shop. I unlocked the front door. I stood there, surrounded by my real flowers, my real work, waiting for the fake people to arrive. At 4 p.m., the door to my shop flew open. The bell above the door chimed aggressively. My father walked in first. He looked disheveled. His face was red. He wasn't wearing his usual suit jacket. Mom was behind him, looking pale and nervous. And Jessica brought up the rear. She was wearing sunglasses indoors. She looked like she had been crying, but she held her chin high. You have a lot of nerve, Dad shouted, pointing a finger at me. He didn't care that my assistant, Sarah, was in the back room. Do you have any idea what you've done? We have bills due tomorrow. I stood behind the counter. I didn't move. I kept my hands resting on the cool marble surface. "Hello, Dad, Mom, Jessica," I said calmly. "Don't hello me," Mom snapped. "Turn the money back on, Savannah. This joke has gone on long enough. Jessica is losing engagement because she can't post. You are sabotaging her livelihood." "Her livelihood," I repeated. I looked at Jessica. "Take off the glasses, Jess." "No," she sneered. "I don't want to look at you." "I think you do," I said, "because we need to talk about digital horizon solutions." The room went deadly silent. I saw Jessica's face go slack. Her mouth opened slightly. Mom looked confused, but Dad went pale. He knew. "I don't know what you're talking about," Jessica stammered, but her voice lacked its usual arrogance. I opened the black binder. "I have the audit here," I said, flipping the pages. "Courtesy of Aunt Karen." "Karen," Dad whispered. "You talked to Karen." "She found it interesting," I continued, my voice steady and loud enough for them to hear every syllable. $3,700 a month sent to a click farm. For 5 years. That's over $200,000. I looked at my mother. "You told me you needed money for electricity. You told me you needed money for taxes. But you were taking my money, the money I earned from scrubbing thorns and hauling dirt, and you were sending it to a company to buy fake likes for Jessica." Mom looked at Dad. "Bob, is that true? I thought you said that was for her management team." Dad didn't answer. He looked at the floor. I looked at Jessica. "You're not an influencer, Jessica. You're a customer. You didn't earn an audience. We bought it for you." "I bought it for you." Jessica started to shake. "Shut up, you're just jealous. People love me." "Robots love you," I corrected her. "And now that the credit cards are canceled, the subscription is over. The bots are going to disappear. By tomorrow, your follower count will drop by 90%. Jessica let out a sob. It was a real, ugly sound. She collapsed into a chair near the display window. Dad slammed his hand on the counter. "Enough. You are destroying this family." "No," I said, locking eyes with him. "I am presenting the bill." I slid the binder toward him. "Here is the record of every dollar I have given you. $214,000 total. That includes the tuition you stole, the mortgage payments, the monthly allowance, and the credit card payoffs." "I want it back," I said. "We don't have it," Dad shouted. "You know we don't have it." "I know," I said. "So here is the deal. You are going to leave my shop. You are never going to ask me for a penny again. You are going to figure out your own life. Sell the house, get jobs. I don't care. If you contact me," I said, leaning forward, "if you try to harass me or slander my business, I will release this audit to the public. I will post it on every social media platform. I will send it to every brand Jessica has ever tagged. I will expose the fraud." I looked at Jessica. "Do you want the world to know you're a fake, or do you want to walk away?" Jessica looked up. Her mascara was running. She looked small. She looked ordinary. "Let's go," she whispered to Dad. "Dad, let's go, she'll do it." Dad looked at me with pure hatred, but he saw the resolve in my eyes. He saw the backbone he had relied on for so long, and he realized it had turned into steel. He grabbed the binder. "You're an ungrateful brat," he spat. "And you're trespassing," I said. I pointed to the door. "The lease is up, get out." They turned around. They walked out the door. The bell chimed again, a happy, light sound. I watched them get into their car. I watched them drive away. My knees felt weak. I sat down on the stool. Sarah poked her head out from the back room. Her eyes were wide. "Boss," she asked softly. "Are you okay?" I took a deep breath. The air smelled like roses. It smelled like freedom. "I'm better than okay, Sarah," I said. "I'm free." 6 months passed. The fallout was messy but predictable. Without my funding, the Miller estate collapsed. My parents were forced to sell the house quickly to avoid another foreclosure. They sold it for under market value. They moved into a 2-bedroom condo on the other side of town. My father had to get a job. He's working as a greeter at a car dealership. Mom works part-time at a department store. They are living the life they can actually afford. And Jessica, the prediction came true. Within 48 hours of the payment stopping, her follower count plummeted from 50,000 to 4,000. Her engagement dropped to 0. She tried to spin it. She posted a video saying she was cleansing her audience. But the comments section turned on her. People realized she was a fraud. She eventually deleted her account. Last I heard, she was waiting tables at a bistro downtown. I haven't spoken to them. I blocked their numbers. I blocked their emails. Aunt Karen and I have lunch once a month. She tells me snippets of news, but she knows not to push it. She told me that Dad still blames me. He tells anyone who will listen that I abandoned them. I don't care what he says. My business, Savannah Blooms, is thriving. I used the money I used to send them, that $3,500 a month, to hire another staff member and renovate the studio. I bought a new van, a reliable one. I am standing in my studio now. It is late afternoon. The golden hour sun is streaming through the big glass windows. It hits the dust motes dancing in the air. I am working on a bridal bouquet. White peonies, eucalyptus, and a few sprigs of lavender. It is quiet. For a long time, I thought that love was about sacrifice. I thought that if I cut pieces of myself off to feed others, that was noble. I thought being the victim made me good. I was wrong. Love shouldn't bleed you dry. Family shouldn't feel like a transaction. I looked at the flowers in my hands. I had trimmed away the dead leaves. I had cut the stems at an angle so they could drink the water. That's what I did to my life. I pruned the dead branches. It was painful. It left scars. But looking around at my shop, at the life I built with my own 2 hands, I realized the truth. Sometimes you have to cut the rot away so the healthy parts can survive. I placed the bouquet in a vase. It stood tall. It stood on its own, just like me.